This is a Flying Cow production.
Well, hello and welcome back to Must Watch Movies. This is, of course, the podcast where myself and Jack Allison take turns introducing each other to movies, whether we like them or not. I, of course, am your host, the Flying Cow himself, Clay Johnson, and my co-host, guest host, whatever he prefers to be called.
I've never been called a special guest before. Wow. All right.
The good boy, the two-time Teddy Award winner, the Lord Jack Allison. How are you, Jack?
I'm okay. Clay, question.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think fingernails go when we die?
To that crappy little place in the sky.
I don't appreciate you not taking this seriously, Clay.
I'm sorry, Jack. I forgot how important fingernails were to your religion.
All my questions are for science. But you know what? I guess not all of us are secular. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. No.
Well, yeah. How are you doing?
We all have different beliefs. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes better than others. Right now, I'm pretty good.
It's it's one day closer to the next.
Yeah.
As my grandpa.
Yeah. I just got off of subbing for second grade, so I mean, it's not first grade. The day before, I subbed for first grade half the day and kindergarten the second half of the day. So
I don't see a drink in your hand, so I'm kind of doubtful of that.
I mean, I told them, because at that school, like I work at that school like a majority of the time, and I told them, I'm like, look, I don't mind doing kindergarten, but just once I'd like to be scheduled for it and not get surprise kindergarten. Because that's how I get it. I was like, on the list of surprises, surprise kindergarten is not usually towards the top.
Yeah. No, that's not a good time. I feel like there should be something of it. If nothing else, is like, all right, well, I know whether or not to wear gloves to work. You know what I mean?
There you go. You go. Yeah.
Well, I guess kudos. I spent the past couple of hours arguing with randos online, so
fun.
I guess you can argue anything like interaction with children, but.
Yeah, I don't post a lot on social media, mainly because I'm trying to avoid arguments online. So
yeah, well, I mean, that's my thing. It's like I've tried to filter out like the real things to argue about, but then I'm like,
sure.
Did you really say that Batman would get curb stomped by Thor? Let's go. I don't even read comics, but that just seems like such a no-brainer. But you know what? Mm-hmm. It is what it is. I hope in some small world that random guy on Instagram is listening to this podcast. It's him. I have the mic now.
Yeah. Of all the podcasts, he decided to listen to mine.
That'd be amazing, actually.
Right.
I'd be like, all right, dude.
Of all the podcasts in all the world, you listen to mine.
He comments like on my post like an hour later, dude, was that fucking you? And I'm gonna say, like, yes, let's write a movie together. And then make love. Right. It's gonna be great. No,
there you go.
Speaking of making love, we watched.
Great segue, Jack.
Not a bad segue in this one. No. Yeah, we watched a movie by my recommendation this go. This was
that's right,
2019's The Death of Dick Long.
Yes.
Now, I kind of went into this a little bit at the end of our last episode, but just some background information. This was it came out in 2019. It was directed by Daniel Scheinert. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is one of the half of the Daniels, if you know who they are, the filmmakers. They made and wrote
Everything Everywhere All at
Once. Yeah, what's the? I'm blanking on the Harry Potter one.
The what?
Swiss Army Man.
Oh, okay.
So if you're familiar with the work, like very funny, very like talented, dramatic / comedic writers, and so it's always interesting to kind of watch something like this, especially even before you know what the movie is itself, because you get to it's kind of like what the Coens have been doing recently. Seeing how they operate separately rather than when they're more known as a unit, which is especially with the Coen brothers. I'd say.
I was going to say it's weird. The Coen brothers haven't made a movie together since I think like 2018. The last one was the Ballad of Buster Scruggs was the last one that they made together.
Yeah,
and I can't remember if that was 18 or 19. I know it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. Ultimately, like I think I think Driveway Dolls was the most recent one that they put out.
I think so.
I didn't see it, but
so.
Like, just when you compare,
I haven't seen any of their solo stuff yet. I keep meaning to see Macbeth, which is the only one that is it Joel or Ethan?
I think it's Joel.
Okay, yeah, it's the only one that Joel has done, and Ethan has done 2 since then.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, no, I'd say it's I like that one quite a bit. Yeah, Joel Coen. Yeah, I'm looking up here. They haven't done it. Well, anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic, but
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Anyway,
honestly, I think the Coen brothers play into this a little bit, and I can talk about that.
Yeah, no, sure,
in a little while.
I honestly, I'll admit, I don't really know too much behind the scenes in this one. I have the.
Oh, I mean, it's not behind the scenes; it's a feeling.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah. I mean, okay, cool. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah, no, so plot-wise, I mean, well, I guess to start out, this movie is a mostly unknown cast. I don't know about you, the only person that I knew going into this movie the first time was Jess Wexler from the movie Teeth. But beyond that, and I guess Daniel Scheinert plays in the Kevin Costner sense, the titular.
Right, and honestly, I did not know that till I literally just scrolled down on the Wikipedia page just now.
Oh no, I didn't know until I this most recent watching, because like I remember seeing him when he won his Oscar. I saw this movie since then. And
okay.
You see his license in the movie, and it's like, oh my god, it's him. It's the best picture.
Yeah, I will say I was familiar with a couple of people. I know I've seen Sarah Baker in a couple of things.
Okay.
And Sunita Mani was in what's it called? Glow.
Okay.
So I knew her from that. And I've seen something else with her in it as well. But yeah. And I will say the guy that plays the lead looked familiar, but I don't know if he just looks like someone else.
Same. Well, I mean, I'm looking at his IMDb too. He was recently in Killers of the Flower Moon and The Bike Riders, which I saw very recently. But he's kind of one of those guys that, like, he looks familiar, but like, you can never really place what he's been in. But I mean, so like for me going into this, it was pretty much all unknowns, and I like that actually. It works with this movie, especially with like the type of community and culture that they're trying to showcase, as well as obviously the events are. You could probably take them a little bit more. Yeah, I think with this type of film, given what it is, which we'll talk about in a bit, is how it changes its tone and like how it kind of redefines its genre. I think if you cast incorrect, like there's like certain actors that if you cast them into this, I feel like the lead would not be the genie would be out of the bottle, to quote the pilot.
I was about to say you can kind of jump in front, you hide your lead, basically.
Yes.
You know, you can kind of give it. I mean, I will say I still think like the tone like shifts, but it's not like it's a 180. Like it's kind of like like it kind of jerks a little bit, but it's still it's still, you know, not a straight up comedy. It's a little bit more comical, but it's still, you know, it's still ultimately about a guy dying.
Yes.
You know, it's still, you know, I will say, if you don't mind, I'd like to give kind of my log line for not a full description, but just a basic vibe of the film.
Which before you do, sorry, real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
Again, I assume that if they made it this far, they don't care. But if you're listening at home, the movie itself, it's very hard not to. The movie is an experience type of film.
Yeah.
So if you are curious about this one, I would urge you to watch this before listening further.
Yeah, it's I will say, just to not bury the lead, it's worth watching.
Okay.
I do think that it is definitely worth watching. And I'm just now realizing your background, Jack, and wow, okay. People miss out by this not being a video podcast anymore, but we can explain all of this later.
No, it's fine. It's a little cartoon character. It's fine.
Yes. But so my kind of brief explanation, without even actually giving anything away, is what it feels like to me is, what if Fargo, but in Alabama, and a little weirder.
Yeah. Honestly, Fargo was a good connection. I didn't put that together.
Well, that's why I said the Coen brothers thing, because it really does kind of feel. I mean, obviously, I feel like we're following, like, I mean, I straight up called our lead one of the guys, whereas in Fargo, we're more following Frances McDormand's character. We're getting both in Fargo, but we're definitely following, Frances McDormand more. Whereas in this, we're again following both, but we're following the guys dealing with the situation more.
Yeah, I know, I'd agree. And yeah, the movie, I guess part of why I picked it was because I think the movie's strength, I think inarguably, would be that it is, it's almost like a magic trick. Yeah, it does have like a lot of comedic moments like early on in the film, but there is like an undertone of dread that kind of carries through up until the midpoint of the movie, up until the big reveal. So like it does feel like a comedic-ish drama, like gritty, like, but then again, the curtains, the tablecloth is pulled, whatever, and it's suddenly a dark comedy, exclusively a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And it just makes all the context so much more, just for lack of a better word, delicious. It's just, it's wonderful. And again, that's why I think this cast works so well, because they like you were saying, and it's they can come off as like a comedic or a dramatic type of actor. They're very interchangeable with how they appear in the film. These aren't like conventionally pretty people, or hardened looking people necessarily. They aren't like goofy looking people like that.
No,
I guess I'm thinking of like a bad example of casting. And I think Chris Pratt would be like a bad example of someone who at this time could maybe pull that. Well, not this time, but like Parks and Rec era, Chris Pratt could have pulled off the lead perfectly in terms of
but this era, Chris Pratt is cast in a bunch of things that he really shouldn't be.
Yeah, and again, we associate him so much with comedy that if like we knew this was Chris Pratt, then what are the chances you are even going to take this like seriously watching it? You know,
right?
So
I will say I appreciated the way this was cast, because, like you said, they're not well known, so there's no preconceptions going in, but they also, because of that, and also I think just on the basis of their talent alone, they feel real. Like the characters feel very much right in this, but like not just like in an actorly way, like almost like, have you seen the movie Bernie?
Wait, Burning or Bernie?
Bernie with Jack Black.
Oh, no.
I'll have to put that on the list. But it basically, it's a Linklater film.
Oh,
and Richard Linklater, and it's basically about a true story that happened in this small town of this guy who kind of became friends with this older woman.
Oh wait, no, I have. And keep going. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, have you?
Yeah, but it's okay. I'm sure.
No, that's fine. It just means it won't go on the list. We can talk about it at some other time. But yeah, he was friends with this woman, and then one day, was not an easy person to get along with, and one day he just snapped and he killed her. And what is fascinating about that movie is that a lot of the people playing the townsfolk were the actual townsfolk from the town.
Mm-hmm.
They were not actors. They were people who actually lived in this town, who experienced this whole thing. And they're not only doing like talking heads, talking about Bernie and stuff like that, but they're also interacting with Jack Black and Shirley MacLaine
Yeah.
as these characters. And it's brilliant. It's
Yeah.
great. And honestly, it kind of felt a little bit like that. Like I knew that these were actors, but they also felt so authentic
Yeah.
to the reality of the space.
It's like a Pasolini film, but without the feces. Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Sure.
And again, they're not like super pretty people. They're not like, again, it's not like very conventional. I mean, again, like, yeah, like exactly like you said, like they look like people in the community. And again, that includes the leads. It's cool to see that. And again, I'm almost
right. Well, and you know, obviously with a lot of that is, you know, makeup and the way that they're done, but you know, they look,
but like they're still like
you know,
like,
even like the pretty people are small town pretty.
Yeah.
You know,
like a guy who like
if they had their hair and makeup done, they could probably look city pretty, you know.
But I mean, like even like in terms of like body type, because like the lead like has his shirt off in several scenes, and like he's just very dad bodish, very like
God, just a natural guy, like a guy with that type of job in Alabama would probably look. Yeah, exactly. It's very authentic. Yeah.
And on top of that, again, I think across the board they're all pretty good performances. Like especially like Lydia Olsen, I think was probably my MVP of the movie. But like she plays she's Zeke's wife. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Virginia Newcomb.
I was about to say that's not her.
Yeah, Virginia Newcomb was MVP.
About? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's okay. Yeah.
She just has so many moments like where you can like, again, the fucked up things that happen in this movie, like you can just see her processing it very like realistically. But
I mean,
also,
it's a very human moment when she finds out what's going on.
But she doesn't go so over the top, like quote unquote, like almost like Oscar baity dramatic that it puts the actual intended tone in jeopardy.
Right. Well, and also like she does a very human thing where, you know, initially she is, you know, overcome, disgusted, all that kind of stuff. And then there are moments when he's very vulnerable that she starts to kind of waver.
Like when he breaks the glass.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, I get it. I understand, you know, regardless of where you might stand on that, you know, I get, you know, having that, you know, initial reaction and then backtracking and then going back to your original position. And, you know, like I said, it's very human.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it feels like so many times, like too, especially that particular scene, but like that you're like, I felt myself, including this most recent rewatch, processing the shit along with her, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like I would again, just because again, it'd been a couple years since I'd last seen this, but again, I'm trying to think through the way it's being delivered, the way it's being, you know, the information's being, you know, given to her and her thought process behind it. And I'm thinking like, yeah, no, I would be here and she's here. It's kind of cool to see that too, like from like an actor who kind of like processes it the same way that you imagine you would, which again, I guess is acting 101, but you know what I mean? Like for this type of movie with like how unique the tones kind of flip flop, so to speak, not necessarily 180 like you were saying, but just again, how there's like a major tonal shift into what this type of movie actually is. I think it's a very difficult thing to pull off as an actor.
Yeah. Agreed. So are we going to keep this vague the whole time?
I was going to ask.
Or are we?
Well, maybe we should start with the premise, because maybe that's
okay.
Because so the movie itself is about a group of guys. Again, I think Alabama is like somewhere like in the South, like where it's taking place. This band's like performing, and it's just like this dad band basically in the basement,
right? And
they, you know, their wives go home, they start partying late, you know, hitting the Natty Light or whatever the fuck they're drinking, whatever light beer it is, and then, you know, just montage of them like just partying, like shooting firecrackers out of Roman candles out of their crotches. Just it gets wild up to like the 5 a.m., 4 a.m. sort of thing. Again, you have a good middle picture of like what that type of get together is with.
Yeah, which, by the way, speaking of that, have you seen the poster image for this film?
Yeah.
It's great. Especially when after you like at first when I saw it, I didn't recognize everything. I didn't recognize what it was. And then after watching it, I'm like, that is the perfect image for the poster of this film.
Yeah.
Look up the poster of this film and maybe you'll probably get it better quicker than I did, but yeah,
I was the same way. Like first of all I was like, what is he doing? But now it makes sense.
Yeah,
because again, even the poster itself, like if you don't know what that is, like this looks like almost like you said, like a Coen Brothers type of like drama in some ways.
Yeah, it's kind of twisted Coen, and I mean, the Coen Brothers get pretty twisted.
Yeah,
but it's like
very well.
Yeah, it's even a little bit. It's twisted a little bit more than you might expect. Yeah.
But yeah, so the movie throughout is so like after that night, their friend Dick, who we never actually like interact with really.
No, we see him, but that is it.
So then it cuts the next day, and like just some shit's gone down. Like they're dry. I think they're the two guys. Look, Zeke and what's the other guy's name? Who's probably my favorite character, but
sure.
Earl. Yeah.
Earl. Yeah.
Man with a haircut. Yeah. So they drop off Dick's dead body, and then just like split. And so
at that point, dying, but pretty close.
But he's on death's door. So he dies.
Yeah.
They have blood in the backseat of their car. Like some shit has gone down that previous night, but we don't know what it is. And so throughout that time, you have like you cut back and forth between the police investigating as well as Zeke, and to a lesser degree Earl, like having to navigate between their personal lives, their families, and whatnot, having to try to settle from like what happened, whatever that may be, and then also explain and try to like talk around admitting what actually happened to their loved ones and or friends. Yeah. So throughout the movie, even though they have like comedic moments, like we said, there is always the undertone of like what is happening, and the more you learn, the more it becomes more and more sinister in terms of like what's implied, because we find out at one point that sodomy was basically involved,
right? And you're just like, okay, were these guys lovers? Was this?
Did they rape him basically? Like there's like
right, yeah, because it's like they said there was forcible, and it's like, okay, were they doing stuff and it went too far? Were they just messing around? But then they do,
which gets even scarier.
Semen,
it gets even because again their backseat was covered in blood and the guy died. Right. So like whatever happened, it wasn't like and
the whole time you're following these guys, and that they dropped this guy off and he's bleeding and dying.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, something, but at the same time, like, they're not dicks. Like they're likable. They're odd, but it's like you don't want to believe that they could have done what is being implied here.
Yes. Yeah. You have this horrible, again, it's that ambiguity that works to its advantage. You just have something sinister, you don't know what, but again, with you following these people, you kind of imprint yourself on that as the protagonist character. So what must be happening, there must be a logical explanation for this, right? But they keep that going pretty well pacing wise, in my opinion, throughout the movie of like, again, these guys trying to, again, it's nothing like any majorly tense situations arguably than the gas station, but you still like wonder, like, all right, like, where's this going? Where's it going? And then, I mean, I guess do we want to finally talk about it?
I mean, I feel like we're going to have to. I will say at this point,
we're not as good.
If you do feel like watching this movie, this is the time to pause. This is the time to go. I mean, honestly, I hope you would have watched this movie before even getting this far. But this is the point at which
we don't
we're
get
about to
demonetized.
reveal the spoiler.
Yeah. Which again, it's like when this movie becomes a comedic drama to a straight up black comedy.
Yeah.
Which again is why I told you beforehand, Clay, like don't look up anything before this movie if you can.
Right.
So again, final word of warning, folks.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the honors? I mean,
it's your it was your suggestion. So
okay, so let me do a little bit of setup for it. So we finally get this split moment between the police and / coroner and Zeke and his wife, where finally he's caught enough in the lie that she basically confronts him straight up in the kitchen saying, tell me what happened. And he keeps cycling through all these different things that happened to Dick. Like he was shot, he was cut up by a buzzsaw. That was his first thing. And she's still pushing because she doesn't believe it. And he's like just so uncomfortable saying, you don't want to know. You don't want to know. And finally, he reveals that it was the horse, Dick's horse Comet. And she says, what happened? He fell riding Comet? He says, no. And she says, what? What is it then? He says, Comet fucked him to death.
Wait, is it
well,
Comet?
It's something like that. He got fucked to death by Comet or something like that. But
why am I all of a sudden thinking that the horse's name is Rocket?
I think it's Comet, but in either case,
either way, either name.
Yeah, he basically comes out straight and says the horse fucked our friend to death. Which again, props to the actor because that must have been so hard to say with a straight face.
God.
And again, that's just like there's just this moment that you feel as an audience member watching this the first time. It's like, what?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The movie sets it up when you look back on it, like having like rewatched it. Like there's like very, very subtle hints at it. Again, it's not overt. You can't guess this necessarily, but the fact that is like what it ends up being is just it just completely spins the movie. And again, all the better to the movie straight. Like they just still have like a straight up like domestic argument about what happened, where she like just basically more so her chewing him out, but it's you laughing, but also this very serious like domestic argument happening around this crazy fucked up thing.
Yeah.
And apparently they've been doing like according to like he even seeing him like try to excuse himself, like I'm sorry, babe, like marriage makes you lonely sometimes, like
he said it started before
he met her. He says for what it's worth, I've been doing this before we even met. I'm like, that doesn't make it better.
No. Well, I mean, it sounds like the way he sets it up is like he and Earl have been doing stuff with Comet since they were teenagers. And apparently like Dick either was completely new to it, like last night was the first time, or he's newer at least to the situation. I don't know that they ever made that explicit how long Dick had been involved in the situation, but he took it farther than any of them had.
And let's be honest, assuming like he had been doing it for like he was also complicit with it for a while. I mean, again, I'm not going to pretend I have any idea what that experience is like. I obviously never will, but but I would imagine there's like some type of like there's a pretty steep like danger factor involved with that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, even if it's just, I mean, I don't want to get explicit here, but I imagine it's just hand stuff mainly, but like you say, there's a danger factor even in that, because a horse kicks you and that can be it.
Oh, that's your first concern?
Well, I mean, obviously there are other things.
Yeah.
I mean, as Dick found out.
I mean, like, here's my forearm.
Well,
I'll leave it at that.
It sounded to me like it was more you know, they weren't involving their own orifices until
No. I mean,
yeah.
maybe not. I
Yeah.
either way, like, I mean, it's implied that Dick died by becoming a dick puppet.
Yeah.
So it's a very unfortunate, but again, and it feels so fucked up to like look at in a comedic light. But again, that's where I think the movie like does a great job. It makes
Right.
it does it. I'm sure there's some people out there who probably find this like absolutely disgusting. And again, it's
Sure.
not the act itself that we're like that it is. It's just the fact
No.
that this is like how it was set up and built to, and it was just this insane, crazy,
Right.
but again set up twist.
But then, of course, like I said, there's that undeniable element of tragedy because this guy, their friend, is dead. He had a wife. He had kids, and how the fuck did they deal with that now?
Yeah, because these guys are ultimately like dumbasses. But yeah, the movie's epilogue essentially covers like it does take like some mercy on the people who are indirectly involved because
right.
Again, imagine them being like a little girl, the daughter of this guy, and like having to grow up with that. That's horrible.
Yeah. That's.
But yeah, these guys though, like again, they're absolute dumbasses. Like again, there's a likability to them, but you don't necessarily root for them to succeed. Even before you know what explicitly happened, you aren't necessarily like, again, because the way they handle things, the way they talk to people, like again, it's more so like just like there's stupid jokes that kind of keep you, I think, endeared. Like the Earl character, I think, was probably like the most like just emotionally ambivalent person in the entire cast. But
yeah, because I mean, like from the moment that they dropped the guy off at the hospital, he's like, I gotta get out of town. I gotta but also he doesn't have a wife, a family, anything like that. He's just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, he's still like
he doesn't have as much to lose. But I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying he also maxed on that local girl. Like I don't know what their relationship like explicitly is.
But
like,
see, like it feels to me, at least in the scenes that we see, that she's more driving the situation there.
Yeah, but again, I guess my point being is more so like, yeah, he's along for the ride, but I mean, like, he's a very passive type of person that isn't like, he doesn't go out of his way to like avoid connections with people that are connected to the town that he's trying to kind of keep a distance from. He's just more like, I guess I'll get out of here, compared to Zeke, who is panicking the entirety of the movie. But
they're night and day, the way that they're each. I mean, it starts off, he seems to be the one more panicking, and Zeke seems a little bit more level-headed because Earl initially, like I said, is planning to leave town, packs up his truck with everything he can get in it. Zeke, for obvious reasons, like I said, he's got a wife and kid. He can't just up and leave. He's tethered, so he has to be at least a little bit more stable at the beginning. And as it becomes more and more obvious that they're not going to be able to hide it, that's when he starts becoming a little bit more unraveled. And by comparison, Earl is more, as you say, passive.
He's really only like Earl by comparison is also really only put in the position to lie to anybody like one time, that being Dick's wife. But with other, even in that interaction, he's just very like casual and like, what do you want? I don't know where he is.
No.
He was having
he's just very But, I mean, he's the only concern he has is being sent to jail.
Yeah, exactly. But again, compared to Zeke, it's just it's a, like you said, a very night and day sort of like reaction to this.
Again,
he takes action, but it just there's such like a nonchalantness to him compared to Zeke, and it's I guess on paper though it would be questionable. Like, all right, how do you make this guy likable if he's just so blasé about everything? But again, I think one of my favorite jokes in the movie early on, at least, is like when he comes to the door, he says, "I got let go of my job yesterday." They said, "What?" I'm just kidding. I didn't get let go.
He's like, "I got fired."
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
No, I didn't get fired.
Exactly. It's like that. It just walks inside. I'm like, that's
and that's while they're dealing with all this shit.
Exactly.
It's just like
you're making jokes.
What? How? What?
Yeah, it's just really funny anti-humor like that
Yeah.
that like keeps me kind of endeared to him.
Well, and like you said, he's kind of forming this connection with this girl. I guess she just lives at the same trailer park.
Yeah, I
as
think so.
him.
That's what I
The
gathered.
character played by I believe
Mani.
it's Sunita Mani. Yeah. Who, like I said, I've seen her in a couple of things. And I actually, I mean, I honestly wish that she had been in the film a little bit more, just
Yeah,
because
probably.
she does kind of have like an odd take on things. Like I almost expected to find out that she found out what happened and was just like, that's weird. You guys are dumbasses, but
Yeah.
just like still hang around,
Yeah,
you know?
they'd have to be very careful how they did that, how they would do that. But
Sure. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying like she's into it or anything
yeah,
like
but
that.
I think
I
that
just
she could
feel
be
like she's more, you know, just like, oh, okay, well, that's dumb. Don't
Yeah.
do that anymore. But you know, let's still hang out because I'm bored, you know, kind
Yeah,
of thing.
she
Like
could
that's
definitely-
just kind of the like, to me, she seems the most blasé out of all of them.
Mm.
But
Well,
at the same time, kind of like a fun person.
Yeah, she
You
because
know?
she like very like when we first meet her and throughout pretty much the majority of the film, she very overtly like hits on the Earl character. And
Yeah.
again, with him being so not
Straight
like
up.
nonchalant and like just again ambivalent, she just keeps doing it. You know, she keeps like being herself around him in spite of like
Yeah.
just this guy just being not standoffish, but he's just like whatever. He's not macking back. He's not
No.
also jilting her or anything. So it's just really funny to see like just kind of
Yeah.
her do her own thing in spite of
Yeah.
all that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, it also just kind of her line towards the end also kind of helps the culmination of everything because you know it's her, Earl, and Zeke who's been kicked out. They're at this like motel, and she says, "Hey, you guys want to get weird?" And they're like, "No."
Of course, because she has no context.
Yeah, but like
for
then,
the
like
situation. So
they
yeah.
want nothing to do with that. They don't again, like to your
No.
point. It's like
Mhm.
if she could escalate that, they want no chance of that ever happening. Because
Right. Yeah.
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 do we want to
And
talk?
of course, her concept of weird is completely different.
Yeah, exactly. She's like holding a joint when she asks it. But
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I will say, like, for the briefest of moments, I almost thought she was pitching a threesome.
Yeah, I mean, I could honestly, I could see that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Which I guess, sort of speaking of, there's also like a moment like where like I guess that I also look back on. Well, actually, let me go back. Do we want to talk about the cops? Because we haven't really touched on them too much in the movie.
Yeah. Let's definitely talk about them.
What were your feelings on them?
I actually really liked Sarah Baker's character. She was kind of just the right amount of quirky. I thought the woman that played the sheriff, Janelle Cochran, I almost felt like she was being pitched, like, you know, to kind of draw a parallel to a movie we've already brought up, Bernie. Not like to the same extent, but she kind of felt like the Matthew McConaughey in that film. Like, to me, Matthew McConaughey in that film really doesn't fit. Like, he really is kind of telegraphing, like, he's the actor in that movie. Like, he's just really big and crazy and like, she just seemed a little pitched up to me.
I can see that. I think I would agree with you in that I definitely feel like the first time I watched this and definitely the second, I think that she is probably the just in terms of like a visual, in terms of casting, I guess going back to what I was saying earlier, maybe this I guess undoes a bit of what I said, but she does kind of, I guess she'd be the closest to what the fuck? Sorry about that. Yeah, I think she is the closest it comes to this character is comedic, if you know what I mean. Like,
I was going to say, it's almost like she was the only one. Like, they told her at first, oh, it's a comedy, and then they realized, oh, we shouldn't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
So nobody else got that note. And so she's the only one playing it like it's a straight up comedy.
Did you ever see, I mean, this is a bit different, but like, did you ever see Cocaine Bear?
I haven't seen it, but you know, I'm fully aware.
So the movie features character actor Margot Martindale in the movie,
Mhm.
and I feel like it's who also plays like a ranger or a sheriff, and it's very similar
Sure.
in terms of like you look at this person, you say, all right, you are definitely the comedic relief. It's very much that same type of like that type of that look, I
Sure.
guess, that you kind of associate.
Right.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
do appreciate her character in that they both the two cops working together are very similar in terms of like the lack of preparation for this crazy thing to happen in their town.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I will say I do still feel an authenticity in the character,
Same. It's
but
not
it
played
also
up.
feels like she's playing the comedy more than anybody else is.
Yeah, but like not like this. Yeah, like I'm in on the, like not tongue in cheek sort of like presentation, but more so
No,
like
no.
you know, you know this is a comedy that you're not necessarily aware that this is like something that's more complicated than that.
Right. Right. But yeah, I really enjoyed, like I said, Sarah Baker as Officer
Yep.
Dudley. Number one, the characters being named Officer Dudley is kind of a joke within itself.
Sure, for sure.
You know, and you know, the fact that she mentions in this small Alabama town that she's married to a woman,
Mhm.
and that she, you know, her wife is all excited for her getting this murder case,
Mhm.
so she is baking her a quiche. You know, that's a little bit of a runner that goes through. You know, and she's also just kind of this um bubbly character, but like not overly so.
Yeah, she's kinda like a Marge Gunderson from Fargo in this case, like, not as smart,
Right.
but
No, well, and also like I said, a little bit more on the like Marge is kind of like, you know, she's normal, small town cop, no nonsense kind
yeah,
of thing. Whereas, you know, she's definitely, you know, new cop on the beat, never
yes,
done this before, everything's exciting. So she's kind of the parallel to Marge,
yeah,
but there's definitely a similarity there.
yeah, and with Marge, it's like there's moments in that movie again, it's again, it's not it's apples and oranges in the greater extent, but
Mhm.
Marge is more of like she uses her public image, I guess, her public persona as almost like she can
Mhm.
weaponize it in a way. Like she can like, put that on knowing how this is how she's perceived and use that to hide her true intent and like getting
Right.
information. Whereas this person is
W
earnest the entire time, but she wants to do the right thing like
Yes.
Marge does. But
Right.
again, her heart's on her sleeve the entire movie.
Well, what's great about the character of Marge in Fargo is that she has so much depth of knowledge, depth of ability, depth of skill
Yeah.
that people don't expect by looking at her. Whereas, you know, I think she, you know, Officer Dudley here is new, but she has still also has unexpected skill. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of this kind of drops in her lap and is more just like, oh, okay, I was not expecting that kind of thing. But there's still, you know, a level of competency that's kind of unexpected, but in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and again, I do like, I think they work as a dynamic very well,
Yeah.
casting wise, which I guess is the the optimal like thing to get out of the duo.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think because they close out the movie basically with like again like this is like why the guy got off sort of easy for like everything that happened because again we're trying to protect the reputations of those who are connected to him more so than himself.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, honestly, probably in a town in Alabama, there probably is a bestiality law. But aside from that, um, he all he could really be charged with is obstruction of justice
Mm,
because, you know, he did, you know, he lied. He it could be argued that if he had taken him to the hospital, you know, without trying to hide it, then there might have been a better chance of saving him. So possibly they could charge him with like a manslaughter, but again, the guy really did it to himself. So I don't know that there's really a whole lot of things besides anything that Alabama might have on the books that they
It also
really
come down
could
to
have
like the
thrown
details
at
of
it.
like how he was directly involved in relation to Dick, because like you could
Sure.
you could argue the bestiality / like animal abuse aspect of it if he was an accomplice to it. I guess you could. But again,
Sure.
we need to get Lauren on this call apparently, because yeah,
Right.
I'm not sure.
I'll ask him the next time I see him.
Yeah, that great first question to ask somebody that you haven't
Right.
seen. In a while.
So, Lauren.
Not
Yeah.
not the follow-up question would be, why do you ask?
Oh, no reason.
Yeah, you might want to leave with, so there's this movie. Stay with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else you had in this movie thought-wise? Oh, do we want to talk about the soundtrack?
I always feel bad whenever somebody brings up the music, because
Okay.
unless the music is bad, I often don't notice it.
No, it's okay. No,
But
it's-
honestly, that usually means, it was probably really good music because I didn't notice it.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if there's anything that you want to say there, feel free.
Well, yeah, just the soundtrack is like, that's one of the things that grabbed me first, because it was like music that I grew up with. Because I grew up in the South, and like I wasn't really into
Sure.
rap or country or any of that shit. So I listened to butt rock growing up. So all of the songs played are like butt rock songs, like your Nickelback, your Creed, your Stain.
Oh, okay. Now that you're saying this, I do totally, because they close with a Nickelback song.
Yeah, exactly. And they
crying out
open with
loud.
"It's Been a While" by Stain. So
Yes.
it's like,
yes.
so it's also
Well,
like
and at one point they're doing a Creed song.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's their band, but they also play the music itself
Yeah.
in the movie,
Oh,
which is cool.
yeah.
Again, it's like, it's
Well,
not like,
no, that's what I was referring to. Yeah, they do both play both the band within the movie play both Creed and Nickelback, but then they do like literally play a Creed song in the soundtrack during the movie. Yeah.
which again, like I feel like that's part of the joke, but like it's hard to really like.
I was about to say,
articulate.
these guys seem like they listen to Nickelback.
Yeah,
They
but at the
really
same time, it
do.
doesn't feel like it's being overt about like making fun of them because of the music per se. It's just
No,
there is a comedic
but it fits.
undertone
It
there.
does fit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's also, again, as a guy that grew up with that music, like that's what I listened to in my like teens and like my middle school,
Sure.
high school era. So it was also like really cool to see that in a movie that came out in 2019.
Well,
So
and also I love the fact that these guys, have like a band and they play these, songs from bands that are, let's be honest, kind of punchlines to a lot of people. And they sing them badly, like so badly, but like in an amazing way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Zeke's voice isn't too bad, but like when you hear like Earl singing at the very end, it's like, oof. And he
Yeah,
even gets
it's
frustrated.
bad.
He gets he's like, fuck. But then Zeke joins in. Yeah, so again, that's just like another layer that I thought was like really just cool with this movie. They could have had it like just be, we're in a band and that'd be it. But again, they just added like a really like oddly funny soundtrack that works to the movie's advantage.
Well, and you also have to feel like that's probably where the majority of their budget went,
Yeah, honestly, probably. Yeah.
was to getting those songs. Because I mean, this was not, I mean, this was the box office number I'm seeing on Wikipedia is like below 1 million.
I can believe that. I mean, it was very early A24. Well, not very early, but in terms of like popularity.
Right.
And again,
because it only
it's
made
under the radar.
32,000.
Yeah, that isn't. What's the budget? I'm looking that up.
I was gonna say I don't see the budget listed, so I don't know what the budget was. I can't imagine that it was super expensive.
I can't either. But yeah, no, all I see is the box. But again, still, I don't know if I can't say confidently if it made a profit, but
Yeah.
Still, yeah, definitely not. Again, I think you're probably right. The soundtrack is probably like the most expensive thing.
Yeah. And I will say I'm disappointed that the box office is that low because granted it's a hard sell no matter how you're trying to sell it.
Mm.
Because if you don't give it away, well, it's just kind of like a typical,
Yeah, I mean, have you
Coen
watched the
Brothers,
trailer?
but not Coen Brothers. I haven't actually because I was trying not to
No, good.
spoil
I s-
anything.
I watched it after I picked it in our last episode, and in hindsight, I feel like you could watch that and kind of still be safe with it. But even then,
Sure.
I still feel like the blinder the better. But
Do they have a horse winning at the end?
not that I don't think so. I think the most we get is just that moment where his wife, that POV shot of her face is like processing the information, but again, we don't know what it is. It
Right.
sets it up like a thriller. Like that's
Yeah.
how it's billed. But again, yeah, it looks very like you wouldn't think twice about it if you watched it. And yeah, it's a shame that it didn't. But I also like would kind of compare that sort of mindset to like The Hunt. Like you can watch
Sure.
that movie, but it's I think even the trailer too, if I remember from seeing it, I think it's a similar thing. It's like it looks like a sort of thriller-esque movie, but again, you can't really pitch it to somebody without letting the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, and if you let that cat out of the bag without them seeing how it's done, that also might turn people off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it is a kind of a difficult sell, but
if I had to, I guess I would basically like if we weren't doing a podcast where you were where you had to watch whatever I suggested, it would be maybe Clay. This movie has a really great way of twisting its genre midway through. But again, I still feel like that's vague enough to where you're not necessarily going to want to go out of your way to.
I mean, I have no idea what the twist is.
Yeah.
But I do know that there is a twist.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, it's definitely a thing to think about. But I mean, like I said, I definitely would suggest that people see this movie. I think it's definitely worth watching for the way that it because like I said, it feels a lot like a Coen Brothers movie, but it does things that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. And again, this is from like half of the guys that like wrote a movie about like a fight scene where they're competing to try to get a dildo up a guy's ass. Like that's like it's in keeping, but
yeah.
Again, if you watch this trailer like back to back with Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's like that's by the same guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's fun to explore. I guess then the two questions we've been doing back and forth. Are you glad? It sounds like you're glad you've seen it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely. Like, I would be careful, especially with who I'm around. Sure. I would be careful who I.
It's not a family movie,
No, I mean, I actually, I usually like play these, on the television in the living room, but. I didn't know what to expect, so I watched this on my laptop.
Smart.
So yeah, and honestly, because especially when everybody was here, you just never know who's going to be walking through or when.
Yeah, walking through, like, he got fucked to death. Sorry, Mom.
Yes. Oh, by a horse, no less.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, don't worry. It's not porn. There's a horse.
Oh yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. So, it's hard to ask this, I guess, with a 2019 movie. But do you wish you'd seen it sooner, or do you?
I mean,
I guess for the sake of recommending it to people while it's in theaters.
I do wish that I could have kind of added to the word of mouth, when it was coming out. Oddly, what's really funny is the film when you were like, you won't expect this, it's a weird twist kind of thing. The film that oddly got into my head and my expectations was Sorry to Bother You. Which is funny because of what happens in that film. But yeah, so but I mean, obviously that one, I mean, not a huge audience, but definitely that has a cult following.
Yes.
And I feel like this should also have, you know, kind of a cult following around it as well.
I would agree. And if nothing else, like it could be a cool influential movie to kind of, I'd like to see people playing with genre and tone in a similar way, not necessarily like the same type of within the same genre, but like, again, like working out like how to effectively make a twist outside of a plot.
Right.
So,
yeah.
All right, cool. Well, any closing thoughts on this one?
No, I think we've pretty much, oh, okay. There was one thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the, kind of the climax of the
Pun
film
intended?
when,
Pun intended?
yeah, when they, when it's kind of become obvious that he's not going to be able to get out of this.
Yeah.
And he goes to the barn.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did you wonder what was gonna, like, honestly, I wondered, is he going to commit suicide by horse here?
Yeah, when that's
like,
where
I was like, did he think Dick had the right idea all along? Like,
yeah. And when the cop's chasing you and like you haven't explicitly admitted anything yet, that's the place you want to put yourself, where like you're
right
caught.
Yeah, well, and then what's so funny about that moment is he, you know, that's when Dick's wife comes in when he's shirtless combing a horse.
Yeah.
You know. And you know, then they go up and the cops are there and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
And then he runs when he realizes that he's trapped, and he runs out of the house and he runs back to the barn. Again, I'm not sure what he's gonna do, but then they go down to the barn and he opens it up and he acts like it's gonna be this big dramatic moment, and he's gonna help the horse get to safety, and the horse is just like, what? And
He's
just
kind of like casually like strolling along. He's like, run free, my friend. And it's like,
it's like, well, and also I'm just like, they're not going to do anything to the horse.
Sure.
It's not like the horse, you know, did any, it was, you know, what happened was not the horse's fault.
Yeah. And I was like wondering like, too, it's like, was he doing this in part because like he wanted to like distance himself from evidence? Is like run away so they can't test you against.
But the way that he did it, it was like, get on, go.
It's very,
I was thinking that it was like I care for this horse.
Yeah, that's what
I don't want it to be. Yes. Yeah.
Because it's super dramatic.
I mean, yeah, it's so dramatic. And it just, it's just so funny.
And even if it works, it's like, where is that gonna, like, you know, they can find a horse.
Yeah. I just, wow. But yeah, that was really the last thought that I wanted to share.
That's all I got too.
All right. Well, then, want to go ahead and let people know how they can get into contact with us. You can contact us, of course, at the Flying Cow Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, as long as I have to be there. And also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. You know, let us know what you're thinking, how you're enjoying the podcast. You know, we're getting close to the end of season 1. We're going to be changing some things up. Hopefully it's going to be even more fun for those that are listening. Hope you guys are enjoying what we're doing out there. Yeah. But Jack, anything from you?
Yeah, can I plug a thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I've hinted at it on a couple of your podcasts and a couple other places I've been doing some recording stuff, but I can finally actually start talking about it.
Okay.
Past almost 2 years now, I've been working pre-production on an audio drama that got picked up by a studio that I've worked with before, VoiceWise, in the past, and
nice.
We're finally moving forward with it. We're in the casting process for it now, but it's an audio It's a sci-fi fantasy audio drama. I've been writing this for a long ass time and working out the kinks with the studio in the meantime. And yeah, we finally put casting out there now. Probably will still be going on by the time of this recording, and excuse me, by the time this airs. And yeah, so we're very excited about that. The story is called Children of the Ashen Star. I'll keep you all updated on that as things develop. It's going to be a little bit before we actually, obviously casting wise, it's going to be a bit before we actually, launch it. But anyway, that's coming down the pipe, and I'm finally happy to start talking about it. So stay tuned, folks.
Awesome. Sounds great. All right. Well, it is time now to announce what our next movie is. And it is my turn to assign a film to Jack. So I am going to go in the complete opposite direction of this film.
Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. I've seen it.
No.
Hidalgo?
I'm actually going to go as far away from the subject matter of this film as we can.
Okay, so no horses.
Because no horses. Because I am actually, I've talked about the fact that I feel like I just keep pushing comedies. It wasn't intentional. And I do, there are definitely some on our lists that are gonna be a little bit more dramatic or a bit more serious or whatever, but I realized the other day, I was hanging out with my sister and her son, and they really wanted to watch this Japanese war drama that we have been watching. And I was just like, honestly, guys, I'm just drained. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm like, I really enjoy it, but I was like, I'm drained. I just don't feel like it. So then they pitched, okay, well, how about this silly anime that we've been watching? And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And my nephew was like, that doesn't even make sense. How can you watch this and be too tired for this and not too tired for this? I was like, it's a different feeling. It requires something different from me emotionally. And right now I'm just in an emotionally drained space. Like, I can watch serious things, but when I get the chance to put on something just for myself, I'm tending to go for lighter, more comforting fare, just because of the feeling that I'm in right now, the space that I'm in. So I am going lighter. I will say we have pitched a couple of musicals, and I have been wanting to pitch a musical for you. Okay. So I have decided, huh?
I'm nervous.
You're nervous. You're nervous. So I am choosing not just a musical, not just a comedy, but a DCOM, a Disney Channel original movie.
Okay.
It can be, it can be found on Disney Plus.
Okay.
This actually, I found out about this because I have recently been listening to a podcast. It started last year, and it's called Magical Rewind. They've been, talking. They've been reviewing DCOMs and like Wonderful World of Disney movies and things like that. And I initially started listening to it because Will Friedle from Boy Meets World is on the podcast, and it was on the Pod Meets World feed. And I was like, let's just check this out. I'll probably listen to like 3 episodes and then stop. That was a year ago, and I am still listening. And occasionally they will do a movie. Like, most of the time I'm just like, yeah, that was silly and fun, and I can watch it in the background, and it doesn't really pull me out of anything. But when I watched this movie, not only did I really enjoy it, but I have not only shared it with my mother and mutual friend of ours, Hannah Kiefer, but I am deciding now to share it with you. And the film is called Teen Beach Movie. It is basically, well, we'll get into it when we talk about the movie, but yeah, completely different from this one, that's for sure.
Are you sure? There's no
Yeah,
sodomy?
not, at least not in the first one.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's more. Okay.
There is a sequel. I actually haven't watched the sequel, but I really like the first one at least. So, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, so that is what we will be watching next time. But until that time, moo.